Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. And before we begin, I would like to give a shout out to Danielle, Elena, Jeff, Mark, Martha, Sarah, Verena, Brenda, and Jennifer. Thank you for being patrons, making this podcast possible, and building a community. For our first-time listeners, along with regulars who at this moment may not be able to sign up on Patreon, we understand, and we still encourage you to support us by subscribing, sharing, and giving 5 stars and a positive review on any podcast platform where you listen to this podcast on. So, without much further ado, we introduce today's guest. He is Kevin Orozco. He is the founder and CEO of Soccer is Therapy. He is a New Jersey native, but has a South American background, which we'll be diving into as we go into the deeper into the episode. And there's a whole lot to this gentleman that this podcast favorites are connected to, including the fun factor of him being a Barcelona fan, even though most people on this podcast tend not to be Barcelona fans. I had to put that there, but no, we got love for everybody. We got love. So, without much further ado, welcome, Kevin. How you doing today, brother?
Good. Thank you, Raphael. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, it's my pleasure and honor to have you here. So, can you describe where you were born and introduce us to your childhood?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, thank you again for that introduction. I think it's great that you're using this platform to really bring about all these multicultural people in this world that, we bring so much value to humanity in general. As founder and CEO of Soccer Therapy NYC, it's a nonprofit that we're using to focus and raise awareness on mental health. We really believe that through exercise, communication, and education, we can really improve the quality of life of people. So by breaking that stigma of mental health, we encourage everyone to basically come together as a safe community and normalize the conversation. And really the organization's mission with that is to sponsor individuals of people who can't afford mental health. And we come in and we provide that service to people. So yeah, again, thank you so much for having us on.
Hey, welcome again. So yeah, let's begin at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Where did Kevin originate from?
Kevin originated from a small town in Union City, New Jersey. It's actually a sanctuary city. So the town itself is filled with immigrants from all over South America and Central America. And it was a really unique upbringing in the sense that my elementary school my elementary school actually was no more than like 500 kids, which obviously a lot of people in this country could relate, but for such a densely populated town like Union City, it was definitely a really cool experience to basically interact with people of your own cultural background, while also learning about all these other Latin American countries that we share the same language, but there's drastic differences between every single country, which is the beautiful part about it.
There's, as a kid growing up in Nigeria, we always had like just one picture of South America,
Yeah.
And it was mostly, especially thanks to football, soccer, as we call it here. It was Argentina, Brazil, and, so we just always saw things one way without realizing that there's a whole lot of multicultural. The background is so diverse that you
Yeah.
might think, oh, everybody speaks Spanish or Portuguese. And
Yep.
like, no, there's a whole lot more languages in there. There's a
Yeah.
whole lot more details that, are not there, that are not public, that,
Mhm.
I'll say they're public, but weren't public to us.
Yeah.
And by the time we started getting the information, and we're like, wait, there's a whole lot that, we don't want that we could easily
Yeah.
jive with these guys. Like, it's
Yeah.
like our people. It's our people, and
Yeah.
started seeing that there was so much in common that, we had.
Yeah.
And so it's just beautiful. The more that people get to be aware of the
Mhm.
others existing and the lifestyle and the cultural elements
Yeah.
in there, it humanizes everything. And
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting about that, like interacting with different cultures and understanding all of that, is like as a child in Union City, right?
mhm.
Um, so I lived there actually from the time I was born all the way up to fifth grade, because my parents decided to move to the suburbs, so we moved to Clifton. But as a kid, for some reason, it was a lot easier to interact and speak to people of just all these different backgrounds. And I don't know if that's a product of our own like ignorance as a child, where we kind of just talk with everybody just because and everything. But then as you get older, these groups of yours basically start to narrow out. So like you have these group of friends who are just all Colombian, and you have this group of friends that are all Puerto Rican or
Yeah.
all Venezuelans, etc. Um, and that's basically like the situation I find myself in now. So it's yeah, in retrospect, again, it puts me in, it kind of just like fits everything. It's just like, wow, that all makes sense, especially when I hear your experience of living in Nigeria, and then like, just
Hmm.
looking at all these other countries and how they operate and whatnot.
As kids, we all had that naivety.
Yeah,
We were all just sponges soaking up everything, and
exactly.
that's why now I describe myself as a sponge.
Yeah,
I rather soak information, and yeah, not all information is valuable, so you don't really need all. But yeah, the valuable ones, yeah, I retain it. And
yeah,
as kids, that's why it was easy to just, jump into every group, jump into every, you meet someone, who are you? What are
yeah,
you? And you don't care, but you just
yeah,
gravitate towards everybody you meet. And because you don't like, are you only Colombian? I only want to talk Colombian. You don't know that. You
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
Like, why? This kid is cool. I don't care if he's Argentinian. This kid is cool. I don't care if he's Brazilian.
exactly.
This kid, as far as the kid is cool, that's the first thing that matters to the kid. And the
Yeah,
kid
yeah,
is running towards that person who is cool. And by the kid's definition of cool, that's it. That's all that matters.
right.
And I think that's one thing that we begin to lose the more life hits us. The older we get, life starts to hit us. And then it's like, wait, there's boxes that's appointed
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
each person. And then you have to move into your box. It's like, okay,
yeah, exactly.
you're no longer a kid. You're getting older. So now go into your box, you know.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar with New Jersey and you're part of you're part of America, how different was Clifton to Union City?
Yeah. It was, it's another world. So like Union City is literally like right across the river from Manhattan.
Hmm.
So it's in Hudson County, and Union City is, I think it's like literally like a mile and a half long, not even a mile wide type of thing. And
Oh.
it's like there's one main avenue called Bergen Line Avenue, and I lived right on Bergen Line Avenue. And growing up there, it was basically like right outside my doorstep, there was a pharmacy, cool. But then across the street, it was basically one of those stores that like you see in Chinatown that just has everything in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so there, like I remember like that was like my go-to spot as a kid for toys. Like whenever I just needed a toy quickly, and like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff. But then a block down, it's a Cuban restaurant where they sell churros and like just everything. But then a block the other way was a panaderia from Colombia. So like it was just a ton of Colombians outside. And then like it was basically just a whole bunch of different shops and restaurants down that entire block, or
Wow.
down that entire street, all the
Yeah.
way up to, I think it was 40 something street. I lived on 38th. And then then as you go out wider or away from Bergen Line, it was just all like multi-family homes. So
Mm.
you'd have two, three, four families living into these houses or into these apartments. And so, yeah, I mean, I lived there until I was fifth grade. And then when we moved out to Clifton, so Clifton is about 20 minutes west of Manhattan. It's a little bit past MetLife Stadium, or at least when we moved out there in 2006, it was still Giant Stadium, which is
Yeah.
pretty wild. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, and Clifton it's a town with, I think, almost 90,000 people. It's ginormous. It's strictly suburbs. I mean, are some areas that are very similar to Union City where there's a lot of multifamily homes and everything,
Yeah.
but Clifton is actually one of, I think, the state's most diverse cities in the state of New Jersey. So for me, it was a massive transition. Um, and to an extent, I'd even say a traumatic experience, a traumatic transition to go from a town where my elementary school, my fifth grade class was like 20 kids, and
Hmm.
the entire school was 500, and we were all basically Latinos. There were some Asian Americans as well, like people from India, Bangladesh, um, a Chinese or Japanese person, sprinkled in
Yeah.
there. Weirdly enough, again, in retrospect, not too many black kids, but nowadays it's different. Versus in Clifton, it was like literally everything, everything from people from Arabic countries to every part of Asia, every part of South America, every part of Europe. Um, it was, it's incredibly different. And for anyone who's listening, like as you can imagine, like 13 years old is not the best age for anyone because of puberty and just everything going
Mm,
on in your
yeah.
life. So to make this transition from being so comfortable with your friends and everything, and then moving into a world that, I mean, my middle school was 1,100 kids.
Wow.
So yeah, so you know what I mean. So it was, it's incredibly different. And also, but at the same time, it was a blessing in disguise. I still consider it a blessing in disguise because I went from living in a three-bedroom apartment on like the second or third floor of in Union City to a house where we had a backyard, a front yard. I mean, that was something that my dad had always strived to do, and it's something that he basically came to this country to do, right? To achieve that American dream, come from Colombia over here, and build a life for himself over here. Um, but yeah, I mean, the move itself was traumatic, but then, like everything, when you're a child, with time, you kind of adjust,
Yeah.
and you kind of figure it out. And again, I consider it a blessing in disguise because I grew up basically in Clifton versus in Union City.
Okay. So with that being said, uh, probably would be. I'm guessing this answer will be coming from Union City, but I
Yep.
wouldn't be surprised if it comes from Clifton. Where do you consider your favorite childhood memory from?
Weirdly enough, it has to be Clifton. But the interesting part about that, though, is that the childhood memory has nothing to do with my friends. It actually has to do with a family member. So the first summer we moved to Clifton, my grandparents actually came from Colombia, and it was the
Mhm.
first time that they ever came. They presented themselves for the visa and everything, and it was honestly basically a celebration. So both my father's mom and dad came,
Okay.
and my mom's mom came because my other grandfather, he passed away many many years ago. But so the three of them came, and I remember that was still like that transition period where like I'm still adjusting to this life here in Clifton and like the suburbs and everything.
Yeah.
But my grandfather, his name was Fabio. He passed away in 2008, and I remember he was a big smoker. He was the type of dude that would smoke like 2, 3, 4 packs a day. But when he came to visit us here in the U.S., because he stayed basically all summer, was he trimmed down a lot on the smoking because in Colombia, like a pack of cigarettes could cost like the equivalent of like $2. But then when he saw here that they were like $9, he was like, nah. He's like, I'm
Ah.
not doing this. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing this here. So
Ah.
so I remember every day because I used to walk back from school. Every day I would come back, and my grandfather was waiting for me at the end of the driveway, with both garage doors open. He had the radio on, and he was just on his seat, just smoking. So he and I had a really really close relationship despite living 3,000 miles away from one another. We shared the same birthday and everything, so like
Oh.
that kind of just brought us together, and
Hmm.
it was almost like exactly 60-year difference between us.
Wow.
Um, so I remember I used to come home every day, and he would be waiting for me, and he basically would I tell him about my school day, but then at the end of the talk, he would basically just hand me this really old soccer ball that my father had for I don't know how many years, but when I was a kid, like 3, 4 years old, I have pictures of like me kicking it with my father,
Hmm.
and he found the same ball in the garage, and he'd give it to me, and he basically tried to kind of teach me a couple lessons. One is patience, and two is to basically just like acariciar la pelota. So basically to like care for the ball and stuff. So he challenged me to juggle it 20 times,
Wow.
and every day I'd come home from school, and I would do that. He'd be waiting for me, and yeah, I mean that it's that has to be my favorite childhood memory because I again in retrospect, when I look back at the memories I've created or the memories I've had that have to do with like soccer or just like family and whatnot, that
Hmm.
is one of the lessons. That's a massive lesson that I learned there. Yeah, and I can still smell the smoke from the cigarettes to the humidity of the summer and
Yeah.
everything. And it
Oh
was
man.
it was also really really cool too because like that was the summer of the World Cup in Germany.
Oh
So
yeah. Uh,
there was a lot of banter, especially coming from him towards Argentina team, basically. So
oh man.
like I had an idea about it, but I was always like, okay, like. But then as I got older, I was just like, oh, so that's why they hate him. Yeah.
Oh man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, man. It's yeah. We used to have a game that we played with juggling,
Yeah.
and not every time we had the luxury of having a ball because it was a luxury, honestly, to have a ball like the
Hmm.
good FIFA grade ball.
Yeah.
So um, we either had the nickname for it was Felele, which was
Mm.
those were like kid balls, which the
Okay.
older it didn't matter at what age you were. If you that was the only ball you could get, we used that at schools,
Yeah.
and sometimes we will we'll tear sheets from our books and wrap till we made a big ball and then juggle that, and we made it a competition.
Mm.
And I never came close to winning. I was terrible. But I think that also added to frustration because when you start juggling and you're losing, if someone had if I had someone to like calm down, you
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
to rush. Let someone else win, but
Hmm.
focus on your juggling. It's a skill set, but you can train yourself to get into it. But because you want to be popular.
Right.
That was how it was for us then, because everybody's like, "Oh, this guy can juggle 50 at once." So
Yeah.
yeah, I can juggle five, I can juggle seven, I can juggle eight, I can juggle 10,
Hmm.
but comparing myself to the guy who can juggle 50
Of
in
course.
one go. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So and but if you're patient, you breathe, just act like nobody is there. you just do sometimes. As there were times when nobody was around me, and I would juggle up to 30, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I did it, I did it. And I look around, oh, nobody's here. Oh, snap.
Yeah, no,
And then I
that's
go to school. I
exactly.
want to go. All right, guys, I can juggle up to 30, and I try to do it in front of everybody, and I can only juggle 5. I was like, oh man, get out of here, get out of here.
That's so funny.
So I
That's
forgot
so
about
funny.
stuff like that, but it was a game that we took seriously. The only thing was we never knew about gambling at that age, so probably was good. Else I probably
Yeah,
would have ended up getting into gambling.
you weren't like Michael Jordan there, a gambler and whatnot.
But yeah, I forgot about that. So it was beautiful hearing that from your grandfather. And the most important thing was that he didn't just say this is a skill that I'm teaching you.
Yeah.
He showed that it's a life lesson that comes with the skill set. And I think that's one thing that many people forget about any sports that you're playing,
Hmm.
that you can apply to your life. You know, you can
Yeah.
apply it, and if and that's part of the fun that comes with it. If all you're doing is just having fun, but you're not, there's nothing you can gain from it.
Yeah.
It's not helping you in any way. Then when that frustration comes,
Right.
you just gonna get angry. But when you've been able to adapt to the patience,
Mm.
when sometimes it doesn't feel like it's working for you, you're able to, you're like, okay, but I'm just having fun. I'm here to have
Right.
fun. So okay, doesn't matter. It didn't work. Okay, okay, well, it didn't work, but I can get it next time anyway, and
Yeah.
you move on. So, but we don't understand how those things at that age. We're all rebels at that age. It's
Of
easy.
course.
It's easy to say, this old man. What are you talking about? This old man
Yeah.
must be boring. I want to go run or something. But
Exactly.
now we can understand what those things, those little details did for us. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm happy that you shared that, and it's beautiful. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that,
Of
man.
course.
It's
Of course.
beautiful. Oh man. So sticking with your growing up in a diverse community, you're in
Yeah.
Clifton now, and so Clifton is an expansion of your background from your community in Union City.
For sure.
Did Even though you in a way drifted to more of your Colombian group in at Clifton, did you did your interactions with other groups in a way start to open up then? Because you still interacted with other people.
Yeah.
So did you like become in a way you became aware of other groups of people that existed, and
Yeah.
how did that impact you like going forward?
Yeah. So funny enough, as I got older, actually, my group of friends became much more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I never really created that close knit community, so to speak, of Colombians in Clifton. I
Yeah.
knew a lot of people that were a part of those groups, and like we interacted, but I wouldn't say that I was like,
You were strictly Colombian.
I
Yeah.
wasn't adopted. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it was just like, yeah, Cali, he's there, but like, he didn't grow up with us basically.
Mm.
So I was forced to form my own relationships and my own friendships that uh it's funny though, because like um one of my best friends back then was a Mexican, and we were basically the only two Latinos of a group of friends of ours who were like from Ukraine, India, Poland, basically Eastern Europeans and just and Asians. So we all basically it was a beautiful moment though, like for a number of years, because like throughout middle school and throughout all of high school, because we all learned from each other's cultures. So
Mm.
like we went to their family parties and stuff like that. So like for example, like sweet 16s and things of that nature are
Yeah.
very different.
What was that experience like? The first one you experienced. What was it like?
Yeah, actually, I would say probably like in 8th grade, I went to a bar mitzvah.
Mm.
Uh, I had number one, growing up in Union City, I had no idea what that was.
Me
Like,
neither.
yeah. Number two, there was in Union City, there's actually a massive Jewish community, but like we kind of like just, it was kind of like we just each lived in our own little bubbles.
Mm.
Versus in Clifton, it was kind of just like everybody's integrated. So that first experience there was I was just like, wow, what's going on? Why do they have him up on a chair and everything? Like it absolutely insane. And like the abundance of food and like everybody was so happy and everything. I was just like, okay, and the music too, weirdly enough too, was like, I was like, okay, this kind of reggaeton type of thing, like it had a bass and everything. And
really?
it was really, really cool. And so that was 8th grade, but then there was a period of time where there were no parties between about 9th grade and then half of 10th grade. And then everybody started turning 16. And then that's when we started going to Sweet 16. And it was literally like, I think in like a year, in like maybe a 12-month period, I went to at least 8 Sweet 16s. And each of them, some of them were for Indians. Some of them were much more traditional. Some of them were kind of like somewhere in the middle between like Hispanic, but also basically white and whatnot. So it was a really, really cool experience, especially Indian Sweet 16s. I have to say that those are probably my favorite ones because it was a lot of people. The food was cool too, because like they would serve very traditional Indian food, but then also American food. So like your chicken fingers and French fries and stuff like that. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. So like it wasn't strictly all in terms of food and decorations, but everybody was dressed in the culturally appropriate attire. Right. Except for like perhaps myself, because I was just like in a suit and tie type of thing. Yeah. So was Freddie, but all the females, they all had the traditional attires and everything. And it was really, really cool to see like how Indians celebrate their Sweet 16s for like the first half. And then the second half, it became like a lot more American, where like they actually wore a dress and everything. So, it was really, really cool. And they were all extremely friendly. And I mean, I have great memories, honestly, in going to these Sweet 16 parties. Yeah. But that was also like the first time I ever tried Indian food. So like I didn't know what curry was, and the reaction I had to curry was unfortunately very negative. Because you know what I mean? Like I had never tasted that. I was just like, is this like adobo? And they're like, no, it's curry. And I was like, oh, well, it tastes very different.
Yeah, there's no curry in Colombian food?
No, I mean, not that I know of. Yeah.
Usually, I know Caribbean food has its own curry.
Caribbean food, yeah. But in Colombia, no. I mean, I'm sure if you go to Colombia now, I'm 95% sure there are Indian restaurants, or there are restaurants now that pop up that kind of, get all these different ingredients from different cultures. But for the most part, yeah, no, it's kind of just more like traditional seasonings.
I just assumed South American food has curry, but I guess since I grew up in the curry cooking, we have our own curry. So it's a little bit different from the Indian curry, but yeah. So I just assumed, I was like, like South America, they're our cousins, so. Yeah, take a curry too.
I mean, again, not that I know of, but if there is, I will. As soon as I find out, I'll let you know.
All right, I appreciate that. Okay, so before we continue, we shall take a quick break and be right back. Hi, everyone. Your host, Raphael Harry here. I can't believe we've gone past our 1-year anniversary of doing White Label American. I've had the privilege of speaking with some amazing people, sharing their modern day immigrant stories. And you've allowed this Nigerian immigrant to share parts of his immigrant journey through this podcast. Also, one of my goals of this podcast is breaking down artificial walls that keep people from getting to understand each other. Based on your wonderful feedback over the last year, I think we have done a decent job in breaking down some of those walls. We would like to continue and expand on this mission, but we need your help. I've had an amazing time creating and producing episodes for this show, largely on my own. We have a lot of ideas for new and exciting content to expand upon the mission, but we need direct support from you, our listener, which is why we have created a White Label American Patreon page where you can make a one-time donation or become a sustaining contributor, where you can get access to exclusive content, help me interview upcoming guests by submitting questions, and even have the chance to sit down with me for a one-on-one conversation, either virtually or in studio. So if this podcast means something to you, and if you really love this show, think about becoming a sustaining contributor and donating by going to patreon.com/White Label American POD. Thanks for listening and for the privilege of your company. Okay, so we are back, and so the your experience with Sweet 16 and the other communities, it's beautiful for me to hear all these, because these are part of the culture that I was only watching on TV. Sweet 16 was a big show on MTV, and we used to watch that all the time. I'm like, wow, people turn 16 and they have parties for their kids. Like, wow, that's nice, I guess. Like, I turned 16. Nobody gonna throw a party for me. All right, man, get out of here.
Yeah.
You're almost an adult. Go hustle. I was like, man, that would be nice if I could have some nice party like this. But MTV kind of glorified it, pumped it up to the next level, because you're seeing almost everybody got a car, got a house, and you're like, wait, what? That's what they're doing for the 16-year-olds. Like, so, but you got to miss out on you experience the real Sweet 16 parties, because it's not about having the extravagant gifts. It's about the meeting the people and experiencing the cultures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we weren't getting that message from what we were watching, because we were just like, wow, there's so much money being spent. Goodness, look at all this. What? You like, okay, so I'm not asking for a car, but can I get a video game?
Can I get a kid?
Yeah, you almost throw you out of the house. Like, get this kid out. You're not even a kid, you're a man. Get him out. Look, you got mustache. You go start working or something.
Yeah.
Can we ask him Sweet 16? What is Sweet 16? You're a man. What does a man want with sweet?
That's good.
Like, maybe the girls, we might consider the girls for a little bit. But I'm like, oh, man. So I was going to ask this question much later, but I think I'll just dive into it since we've touched on food already. If I want good Colombian food, it's going to be a two-part question. So for good Colombian food in your part of New Jersey, will you send me to Union City or will you send me to Clifton?
No, I definitely send you to Union City. Yeah,
okay,
for sure. Yeah. So what's interesting is that I grew up in Union City. I grew up eating from this place called Pollo Mario. Pollo Mario is it's kind of like a restaurant chain, but it's not. So the reason why I say it's a restaurant chain is because they have another location in Queens.
That was going to be the second part of the question.
Yeah. And then they also have another Pollos Mario. I don't know if it's still there, but they had one in Miami, or South Florida in general. So I grew up eating Pollos Mario, and the place is still there. It's phenomenal in the sense that everybody who works there is basically, obviously Colombian and everything. They recently had to remodel because unfortunately their establishment caught fire a couple years ago, but now it's very different to when I was a kid. Like they had the setup of it and everything was a lot more traditional versus now it's very modern with like neon lights and stuff like that. So I get what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the one place that for the most part has also grown a massive influence is this new I call them an empire. It's Noches de Colombia. Noches de
Not just the
Colombia.
Colombia.
They have a lot of locations
Oh, wow.
now. Like they've grown exponentially over the last decade, and I don't know the owners. I don't, but the first one, I remember when the first one opened up, it basically like captured everybody's heart. Where like the waits were like always an hour plus in Union
Oh,
City,
wow.
and now they have like three or four locations in Union City alone.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's out of control. There's
Okay.
one over here in Jersey City that's on a street actually where it's like a block or two away from where my father lived when he first came to this country. Because yeah, I live in Jersey City now, so it's kind of like it's like a full circle moment type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one I've been going to the most since I've been living here. So I guess to answer your question, I'd send it to Union City, but specifically Noches de Colombia, to just get good value and a lot of food, which is kind of like the way to go.
So
Yeah.
now that you said Union City, between Union City and Astoria, Queens, who has the best Colombian food in your opinion?
So I'm going to be biased and say Union City.
Okay. Hey, we all got our biases. That's fair enough.
But the reason why is because I would go to Queens when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the last time I went as an adult to go eat. Not only because it's a stretch, but it's kind of like, I mean, I could also just get the same food 15 minutes from here as opposed to paying the toll and dealing with traffic and everything. So I'm open to suggestions, of course, for me to go check out and everything, but I'd still say that like Union City is still like the main hub for traditional Colombian food and like to interact with traditional Colombian people and everything.
Yeah.
I think Astoria, to an extent, like every neighborhood, is slowly being gentrified, and it starts to attract a different type of person, and they're expecting a certain experience and everything. But Union City hasn't really changed in that regard. They've been gentrified in the sense of like, yeah, sure, opening up, like knocking down some multifamily homes and building up condos. But the people who live there and the people who work there and everything are still the same type of people, basically, from 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I never, because I never really played in Astoria since I moved to New York, and it was when did USA host the Copa Americas, the last Copa Americas that USA hosted?
2016.
2016, yeah. So I had some friends who lived up there in Astoria, and I had to go to the beer garden on was it 36th Street or what? No, I forgot.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I've been there.
That big beer garden.
Yep.
So no, that yeah, is it like the We Walk that was by the beer garden? But from there, the balcony you could overlook into the beer garden. So I've forgotten who organized it, but it was I've forgotten, but it was one of these soccer companies that organized the meetup. But I think they gave the Real Madrid Peña some tickets, and I scored one of the tickets. So my friends also came. So I've been there like once or twice. But I never realized how Colombian that area could be.
Yeah.
So that day, United States was playing Argentina for the one of the semifinals, and then Colombia was playing the second semifinal against Chile. So United States game was first. So I had I had this weird hat. I don't even know how I got that hat, but it had the red, white, blue. So I got out of the train. As soon as I got out of the train and I got onto the street, everywhere was yellow. Everybody was wearing yellow, 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 yellow. I look right, look left. Man, I take off my red, white, blue hat. Like, man, I'm Colombian right now, man. I changed teams right there. Like, nope. I love USA and all that, but hey, man, when in Rome, you gotta be like the Romans. Nope. Because I was like, wait, what's going on here? So I texted one of my buddies. He's actually from. He was in Queens and then moved somewhere in New Jersey. And he's like, you in Colombian City, man. Oh, didn't you know that? I was like, oh, Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
That's
I
cool.
think my shirt has yellow. I hope they recognize
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
have yellow on my shirt. I don't have Argentina colors,
yeah,
or Chile colors. Let them not think I'm Chilean. So yeah, let me just get to the venue, then I'll put on my hat again. But everywhere was yellow. There was so
that's a good
yellow.
idea.
It was. I was like, wow. There was so many yellow jerseys. I was like, whoa. I did
Yeah,
not expect to see that, and yeah, that was a big shock to me that day. I was
yeah.
like,
No,
wow.
I'd say especially the last since 2014, there's been this obviously massive wave of Colombian fans. Um, like this is for the last couple of years, it's been the moment for Colombia, where we've had like our best squads, and out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but like there's just energy that's been injected
Hmm.
into Colombians and Colombian fans that is very, very influential. And it's like it literally is like an infection where like everybody just wants to feed off that same energy. And there's really nothing like watching a World Cup game or a Copa America game with Colombian fans, in
Well,
my opinion.
that's something I have to do. That'll be the
Yeah,
next thing I have to
yeah,
do. Like, for the next World Cup, which by then this we should have a good hold on the pandemic. Yeah, I think that will be the next phase of the podcast where I will make
yeah,
sure I sit down with each country's fans, and I know the country
yeah.
that will be the most boring. I know the one. I'm not gonna say it right now. They know that I've never supported them in the World Cup, but I troll them the most. I troll them. It don't matter. Argentina is my least. Is from South America. Argentina is the country that gets the least support from me. But when they play in this country, Argentina gets my support.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, it's a European country, by the way. So that's
Okay.
the clue I give. Then they know themselves. So
You made it clear to them.
yeah, I love trolling them. I love trolling them. But I have very good friends and family from there. Funny enough, those who don't know
Right.
would think that I outright hate them. Like, no, I don't hate the people, but I can't support your country at the World Cup. No, no, no.
Yeah.
Well, Colombia, man, since the first time I ever jumped on the Colombian bandwagon was
Hmm.
prior to USA '94 when Colombia
Hmm.
beat Argentina 5-0 in qualifying
Yep.
for '94 World Cup. And man, they showed that game. I was living in Benin City then. They showed that game probably more than 10 times on our state TV.
Yeah.
They showed that game over and over. Like, what? Argentina had Maradona. It's like, because Maradona's on the field, nobody should beat Argentina. That was just the mindset. You can't beat Argentina. Canija is there.
Yeah.
You can't beat them. Like, but Colombia whooped them 5. What?
Yep.
Shoot again. Shoot it. It's like, shoot again. Oh, well, show it again. You're like, in the afternoon, you see it. Nighttime, you see it. So it's like,
What
okay,
was the
well,
score?
if you don't want to see Nigeria, well, guess what? There's Colombia. You're gonna see Colombia
Yeah, yeah.
again, and everybody love Valderrama. We just, we couldn't do the hair, but you just love him. It
You
didn't
just
matter
love
if
them. Yeah.
we couldn't hear what he was saying because they didn't have the budget for translators. So
Yeah, yeah.
but we just watched that. And then Higuita, we loved him from in Italia '90. Actually, was when Colombia started having fans, but it was more of people were laughing at Colombia because against Cameroon, which all of us being Africans, whichever African country is doing well, the whole of Africa just supports that country. Because then we used to only have one spot at the World Cup, so we had no choice but to back whoever was at the World Cup.
Right.
And when Higuita tried to dribble Roger Miller and he gets the ball from him and scores, it became like, you see, you don't try to show off against Africans. You're disrespecting Africans. Tell you can dribble us. Your uncle will be there talking, look at these people. They want to dribble an African. You don't know about Africa. What you know? We'll get the ball from you. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, who be kids look? All right.
Yeah.
that's,
No.
that's the message we got.
No, and I mean, so I was born in '93, so I didn't really see El Pibe play or Higuita or anything like that. But
Yeah.
thanks to YouTube, honestly, was how I found out, and I saw what Higuita would do on the field, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what
Yeah,
is this guy
he
doing?
was he was out of this world. Like,
Yeah,
it was with time. It was just admiration that
yeah,
we were talking trash at him, but we admired the guy. We just
yeah,
because we're dumbfounded. Like, this is a goalkeeper. This guy would dribble up to the midfield, dribble into your half. Like, wow, we got outfield players who can't dribble like that. I wish I could dribble like that. So all we had to do was just talk trash. We turned it into talking trash, and we loved it. His hair, he had the soul glow hairstyle from.
Yeah. And back then, goalkeeper jerseys were also very colorful.
Man.
So
man. Goalkeeper jerseys. Oh man. That's right.
It was good times.
Oh man, good times. So yeah, so Colombia always has a special place in my heart. You know, I always knew that they were fantastic, skillful players. Asprilla was another guy who, you know, probably, I guess that was a sign that I was going to get bald, because I was already in love with a bald striker. I never knew them because I had an afro back then. But I was like, this guy could score, like when he scored a hat-trick in the Champions League while playing for Newcastle. I was like, wow, this guy, he Colombian. That's why he's good. I don't like Newcastle, but I like the Colombian guy there. I like him. That's so fair. If you give me the Newcastle shirt, give me the shirt Asprilla wore. That was my mentality then. I don't care about that team.
I have a quick question, actually, regarding that. So would you feel the same way about Everton right now? Knowing that
my boy is there, James.
James. Okay.
James signed up for Everton. I mean, James was the person I learned how to pronounce that name thanks to him, because when he came, at the World Cup, you know, it was because I followed James from Porto to Monaco. Right. And when Real Madrid, after the World Cup, when Real Madrid came for him, and there were people who were like, why are you buying this guy? Who he's never played for a big league. I was like, you ever seen this guy play football before? Colombian boy, this guy's good. I seen him in Porto. I seen him at Monaco. Man, my question: pay more money. Pay more money for this guy. He's Colombian. He can dance too. Pay all the money. And at the World Cup, he was playing football. Like, man. And then I had some people saying his name is James. I was like, James. And then I had one commenter say, that's not the pronunciation. It was James. I said, oh, okay. I'll be saying James from now on. I learned pronunciation. And some people were like, wait, it's not James? I said, no. I was in Texas then. You're like, no, his name is not James. It's James. How you know? I said, because he's not from the United States. He's not from England. Stop saying his name like he's English. He's not English.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I can see. I said, yeah, now you get it.
Yeah.
It's James.
That's great.
Yeah, so I support him. He's my boy. And unfortunately, due to the politics at Real Madrid, it didn't work out with him. Yeah. But everywhere he's gone, even Bayern Munich that I don't like, because I'm a Borussia Dortmund fan, I was still rooting for James. And now he's in Everton. Yeah, I don't do English Premier League, but if there's a highlight of Everton, I watch, and all I'm waiting for is either his assist or his goal. I take that, you know. And I like that. Colombia's, I'll say Italian 90, from Italian 90. That's when Colombia came into my life in football, and I never even thought about, they got food too. I have to eat one day. I've tried the food. There's a place on Fifth Avenue. I think that one may have closed. There's another one that's opened. But the one I first met here probably got closed down with a bunch of places have closed, gentrification plus the pandemic. So, but there's another Colombian place and an Ecuadorian place. They're right next to each other. So the flags look alike because they have their flags outside. So, I always mix them up. But, that was the first time I ate Colombian food in New York in my life. So
that's cool.
Yeah. But, I encourage people to try Colombian food, though. There's a whole lot of good stuff. So, amongst your Colombian cuisine, which will you consider your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I've been on this train of thought of me wanting to go back to Colombia ASAP, because I haven't been in 4 years, and my parents tend to always try to create this dish called Casuela Marisco. So it's basically like a bowl. It's like a soup or a stew, I would say, because it is on the thicker side. That has like yuca in it, plátano, or plantain. It has
is
red
it fried
snapper.
or roasted?
No, so the red snapper is actually cooked within the stew. Like a whole red snapper and whatnot. So it's not the same And the last time I went to Colombia, I went to this place in Cali that serves it. That it's just like outdoor space where it's not fancy or anything, but it's just as traditional or like as Colombian as you can get. And really, the Casuela Marisco is just it's out of control because they also fill it in with like a whole bunch of other seafoods that are unrecognizable.
Yeah.
But it tastes good. So, but the red snapper that's specifically served like with rice and tostones, and tostones are plantain chips basically, but that are flattened and then
Oh,
fried.
okay.
Um, so
So
or
the plantain chips, is it made from ripe plantains or unripe plantains?
ripe.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So like you end up yeah. They end up flattening it out, but like they don't cut it into slices. Instead, they basically get the whole plantain and then they cut it kind of like diagonally.
Oh,
So you
okay.
end up with like a big sliver. When you squash it, then that's when it's called patacones because they're so big.
Mm-hmm.
So they look like a big foot type of thing.
Yeah.
And then you serve that with some guiso, and guiso is basically like a mixture of tomato, onion, some seasoning, and water, and it's basically just creates this. It's kind of like pico de gallo, but with a bit softer of a consistency, so it's not as chunky, basically. So you put that on, and then you just combine all the food, and it's really really good, and it's healthy too because it's
Yeah.
seafood.
Oh, it
Yeah,
does sound healthy. So I wasn't. Yeah,
yeah,
it's healthy and it's already making me salivate right here. But
yeah,
so the place where where you eat it at, you said you described it as an open door place.
yeah,
Yeah. So it reminds me of some places in Nigeria that kind of the settings. Some of them are called mama put, and
yeah,
it's like local. It's not the fancy place.
yeah.
But you order. It's not like there's no menu. There's no menu when you come
Yeah,
there.
there is no
You
menu.
just you know what you're gonna eat. You just tell them this. They tell you this is what we have. And they're, okay,
Exactly. Yeah.
give me this. All right, and then you just go sit down. There's tables and chairs, and you just sit down.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's one of those places that
mm.
has no flat screens.
Oh yeah,
There's no AC. Instead, it's a fan.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, those white plastic chairs.
yes, yes.
It's one of those places. It's one of those places. So, and
Yeah.
then like across the street, there's like this massive marketplace where people can go ahead and buy like vegetables, fruits,
Mm-hmm.
and meat as well. It's a really it kind of just like grounds you eating there because it's really focused on like the taste of the food and everything versus the
Exactly. Yeah,
and then
that's where you get the real taste.
you
Yeah.
know you
Yeah.
appreciate the experience just simply by being there as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to there what's actually around you.
And you
Like
get you get
they're not trying
some
to
great conversations going on there too.
yeah. I feel like at least the times I've been there with my family, everybody kind of just like lets their guard down.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of just like there, and then you can realize you've been there for 2 hours, and you're
That's
not
true.
even having drinks. You're having soda
Yeah,
or water or whatever.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. People just start talking to you, and before you know it,
Yeah,
they're sharing stories, and you like, whoa, I never knew about this
yeah,
town or this part of the country, and this person, and they just, yeah, I'm like, wow, wow. You should come back here again, man. Come back here. I'll bring this person next time. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's places like that that make some connections that are just priceless. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I like those kind of places, and actually, those are the kind of places I look forward to eating at when I
Yeah,
travel because
same.
it's beyond words. It's beyond words. It's just
Yeah,
it's
I have to agree with you
yeah.
there, especially because like so I actually took a solo trip in 2019 to Europe, and I avoided specific touristy areas because I
Good
wanted to
call.
get like the most not even the most experience because it sounds cheesy, but more so like I just wanted to live and eat at places where locals would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And through those experiences, there's just a different level of appreciation for food, and you're not necessarily like Googling or like stuck on your phone trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out or plan things out. You kind of just like this place looks good. Um, and that's actually how I found a Colombian place in Amsterdam,
Oh
actually.
wow.
Yeah. I have a picture and everything where it's like the Colombian flag, and they have like pan de bonos outside and buñuelos, and I'm just like, what? It was like, it was honestly like that was more shocking to me than
Ah.
eating any other good food, because it's just like, my people, we're
Yeah.
here. You know what I mean? Like, it was cool.
Ah. I love Amsterdam though. It's
Yeah.
a lovely city. That's something that that's a guest who I'll be releasing this episode soon. He does. He's a traveler. He's a traveling vlogger, and yeah, he
Cool.
just jumps out there and goes to places, and he strikes conversations with locals, and they just take him to some, even take him to their houses and offer him meals, and that's how he gets to
Wow.
try local foods and local cuisines, and it's just a total different experience for
That's
him, and
incredible. Yeah.
like yeah, because you can never get that at any fancy restaurant. I mean, it's a whole different experience, and I'm not. There are some people who that's their comfort level, and I'm like, that's fine, but it takes you have to walk to get into that stage where you can say, okay, I'm at this level where I can go try, go to the streets. But like me, like when I was in Bahrain, that was one thing that I saw this guy on the street making shawarmas, and I was like, we have a shawarma place on Bays. I seen it, there's a shawarma place where everybody from the military got their shawarmas out in the city. It was like it looked like a McDonald's type franchise place, very fancy. And I was like, yeah, but this guy on the street though, his shawarmas, there's something about it. It
Something about
smelled
it.
good. My nose doesn't work all the time, but my
Yeah.
nose
Yeah.
could pick this scent, and the shawarmas look juicy. I don't know what it is in there, but I need to try it, man.
That's
I
so
went
good.
up there, and he looked surprised when I showed up there, and he was.
Hmm.
I'm like, dude, we'll figure it out. I'm like, I need two. Yeah, with the language came out, we figured it out, and I got it, and it was like the cheapest shawarmas I ever got, but they were huge.
So good.
And when I ate one, and I was like, man, I can't even move.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I even overpaid. The guy chased me down for how many blocks, yelling, "Boss, boss, boss, boss!" And before I realized somebody was, calling me, and I look because I don't know who calls me boss. Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting that. And I turned around. This guy been following me for how many blocks, and because he was afraid to touch me, I guess. So,
That's so good.
so I turn around and I see him, and I'm like, wait, what? And he change. I was like, oh, how much exactly was it? And he's trying to tell me, but he can't speak English. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you know what? Take some. I gave him some change back. You know what? It's really good. Have some
Hmm.
more back. He was so happy, just jump in like.
That's so
Next
good.
time, I said next time. Yeah, I'll be there again. And every time I went past that area, I was always stopping there, grabbing shawarmas. And that was the best shawarmas I had while in that
So good.
country because it's on the street. And I remember one time I was buying shawarmas there, and somebody was like, are you sure it's healthy? Are you sure it's safe? I'm like, you ever seen somebody buy shawarmas from there, eat, and fall down dead? No. Why am I going to die? I'm not the one's going to die there. So, yeah, and if you ever stood there eating, someone sees, they're like, hey, how did they just, because most Americans never try to stay there. Everybody, we just walked away, like, and some would develop that mentality, like, oh, maybe we're arrogant and like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, we're not all like that. There's some of us who, we ready, we like to engage too. And
Mhm.
so when they see that you want to engage, they will engage too. And then
Yeah.
before you know it, you start finding out secrets that you never planned for. You just thought, oh, I'm going to come enjoy this city. But they were like, oh,
Yeah.
you really want to enjoy the city? How about you go check out this place and check out that place and check out
Yeah.
this? Tourists don't know about all this because tourists only just go by the manufactured lanes. Here are other lanes for you to go by. I'm like, oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So, yeah, so that's why um, going out of the lane sometimes is important when you go, when you travel. And
Yeah.
that's why I love that place you described in Colombia. So,
Hmm.
what other places did you go to on your European trip?
Yeah. So when I went to Europe, so I had the first time I went to Europe was in 2014. I went with my sister. We went to a Barcelona game. Yeah, that was pretty incredible.
Don't worry, we'll edit this part out of the podcast. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, but
Nah,
you
nah,
might
go
be
ahead.
happy. You might be
Go
happy
ahead.
because they ended up losing the league to Atletico Madrid that day.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. That was a good day, right? That was a good day for you.
No, no,
But
I still hope to visit New Camp one day. It's still on
yeah,
my
yeah.
list.
Yeah, no, that year was really, really cool because we also went to Madrid. I actually saw Real Madrid win the Champions. They beat the Champions League. I went to the Bernabeu and they had like this whole massive watch party there, which was heartbreaking for me because it was
Why would you do
like
that to
I
yourself?
no, it was because my cousin is a
uh,
Madrid fan and she was there with her husband and everything. So yeah,
uh, you,
we did that whole thing.
you took
Went to
one for the team. Oh, all right.
yeah, basically.
That's okay.
Yeah,
We like people who do something for fair play.
yeah, yeah. We went to Rome. So that was a good trip. But then in 2019, when I went, I took a solo trip, and that solo trip it wasn't it wasn't my eat, pray, love moment type
Yeah.
of thing, like how a lot of people immediately think that. For me, it was actually a lot deeper than that.
Mm.
For me, 2018 and 2019 were very difficult years. Very difficult years in the sense of just kind of like trying to figure out who I am, how I fit into my career and everything that's going on. I was extremely unhappy where I was career-wise, but perhaps more importantly, that was probably also when I had hit my lowest when it came to mental health and everything. So I approached this solo trip, as an opportunity for me to defeat any of these mental health demons that were basically haunting me and whatnot. So my first stop was in Amsterdam. Amsterdam, it was always on my list because I just always wanted to see the canals. Like
Yep.
for me, it was like,
Oh,
this
so
is
you did
beautiful.
a tour of the city by the canals?
No, I actually walked the entire city.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I stayed at a hotel. Where was it again? It was on the north side of the city, by the ports. So I stayed up there on purpose because not only was it a nice hotel, but it also forced me to have to make my ways around the city by walking versus
Mm.
just like Ubering everywhere. So I walked everywhere, and in my walks, I stumbled upon uh, this uh, this bar that was open since 1696, and I
1696. Wow.
1696, which when I found out after the fact, I was just like, yo, this bar is older than America. What is going on? You know what I mean? Like, this
Crazy.
is wild. So, and I
Wow.
remember I went inside to order my pint, and like it just smelled like cigar and like tobacco, like hardcore, but like nobody was smoking inside. It was
Mm.
just the wood and the oak and everything was
Yeah.
just burnt and so old that that's what it was. It was also cash only, which was really, really cool. They didn't even have a register. The dude just like took the money. And I was like,
Wow.
how do you know how much you're charging me? Basically. So I was just like, all right, whatever. But it was that was also, but that whole bar, or that whole experience is really, really cool because it goes back to what we were just talking about being open to conversation with people. So like I sat down, and this guy was walking towards me, or like walking towards the bar, and he was wearing these the Travis Scott Jordan 1s, which had not even like they hadn't even come out yet. So I was just like, "Oh, I like your sneakers," and he was like, "Oh, cool, thanks, man." And he had like this really like American West Coast type of accent. I was just like, what's going on? So he went inside the bar, he came back out, and he actually sat down next to me, and he was like, so where are you from, dude? So we started talking and everything. And turns out that he works, I was just like, this guy sounds like he has a lot of money, because he was just like, yeah, I have this place in Brooklyn, and I just opened up this place in California, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what's going on here? So I was like, what do you do? And he was like, yeah, Stumptown Coffee? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I'm the founder. And I was like, Dwayne? And he was like, nice to meet you. And I was just like, yo, what's going on right here? So it
Wow.
was really, really cool because he had also just moved to Amsterdam because he was doing some business out in Amsterdam and whatnot. So like we got into this whole conversation about everything. And and then from there, like I literally turned around after he left, and then I started talking to these other two dudes from California. One of them worked for like the Department of Agriculture, and this other guy who worked like insurance or something like that. But point is that I just started like talking to everybody just because that one interaction
Mm-hmm.
with Dwayne basically forced me into this mode where I was just like, you know what, that's it. Like if I just had a conversation with him, I could basically have a conversation with anyone.
Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Amsterdam was a really, really cool experience. And then from there, I went to Madrid. But that trip to Madrid was half pleasure, half work. Work because we had with my work with Complex, we had struck a partnership with Heineken to cover the Champions League final.
Okay.
So I went to Champions League final, a pretty boring final, but Madrid was incredible. Like the experience itself there was awesome and everything. So that was really, really cool. And then after Madrid, I actually went down to Sevilla. Sevilla was beautiful. I was there for like 2.5 days, but it was like the most tranquil days
Mm.
I've probably ever experienced. I also walked the entire city as well. It's also small enough to walk, but that was really, really cool. And then I went back to Madrid. And then from Madrid was basically where I spent the last few days of my trip there. But yeah, I mean, I have a few places that I want to go to next in Europe. I had a trip actually in 2020 that was canceled due to the virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go to Lisbon, London, and forget where else. I think Nice. I think we had planned on going to France just to see. France was never really a country that I had never really had on my bucket list of going, but now with my girlfriend, it probably is.
Well, since you had said Lisbon and London, I was expecting another city starting with L. But
Yeah, no,
you
no.
said Nice. I was like, dang it, it switched.
Maybe Luxembourg, even though it's not really a city, but
Well,
yeah,
yeah, Luxembourg City. So, and Luxembourg is really small and tiny, but
yeah,
yeah, it's somewhere I need to visit one day too.
yeah.
So, yeah. So it was after this European trip that you had a clearer picture of your mental state.
Mm.
Kind of, you started working on your mental state, and you got the inspiration for starting soccer as therapy.
No, so soccer therapy NYC really
Sorry,
started.
soccer therapy. I keep saying
No,
soccer
all
as
good.
therapy.
Don't worry, you're good. So that really started in 2020. To me, the trip in 2019 was a way to prove to myself, more importantly, that like I can manage everything going on. I can manage being alone. I can manage my emotions. I can manage my thoughts and everything. And the way I approach mental health, or the way I see mental health, is that it's not something you really just do once and then you leave it alone because like I did it. No, I think it's always a form of improvement, right? It's very similar to like if you go to the gym, you don't go to the gym once,
Yeah,
and then once you realize, hey, I have a six pack, that's it.
that's it.
It's a,
Yeah. Hmm.
you keep going to, whether it be maintain, further strengthen, or whatever the case is. So I approach my mental health that way, where it's like, okay, I know I can now basically deal with being literally alone, with no family or anything like that. And then I continue to just work on everything that I learned, and I made very drastic decisions to improve and change my quality of life. So I definitely obviously started exercising a lot more. Um, the ability to communicate has always been something, I think, especially for us men, is always something that's very difficult,
Hmm.
uh, for many reasons. Uh, but I think it can be drilled down to cultural norms. I think for anybody who's considers themselves or is part of like a minority community, to speak about your mental health or to speak about your thoughts and feelings is really something that's frowned upon.
Yeah,
I think
we're not
it's something
encouraged. Hmm.
yeah, it's not encouraged. We're just taught to like, put your head down, keep going. You'll figure it out. Um, and that was something that was never really instilled in me though. Like my father never told me that. My mom never told me growing up, like, you're sad, too bad. Um, it was just something that like, for me, I always approached expressing my thoughts and my feelings as like, no, I need to be stoic because I need to be a rock for my family. Because the day that my father isn't there, I need to be able to,
Yeah, you take
manage
over.
things, basically. Not that I ever thought my father would pass away, like when I was 13,
Yeah.
but that was just kind of like where my dark thoughts would always take me, right? To an extreme. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit and everything, the first couple of weeks were pretty difficult. Working from home, I was never really a fan of that. So whenever I was never really somebody throughout my career who said like, "Hey, can I work from home today?" It was always more like, if I'm working from home, it's because I'm actually sick. Other than that, I'll make the trip. If it's snowing, I'll make the trip because I don't like working from home. So being put into this position where you have to work from home, I was just like, oh my God, like what honestly, what do I do with myself? Because I was used to this routine and I was used to this break in between work and home to kind of just be in my thoughts, whether it be listening to music, a podcast, or just
Mm-hmm.
like decompress and kind of like let the cold hit your face from like a stressful day or something.
Yeah.
But now we're basically being told stay home. So that created a lot of pressure within me, and like the first couple of weeks were very difficult. And then a lot of the I'm not sure if most people remember, but there was like this massive rhetoric online of, during this pandemic, if you're not doing something productive, then what are you doing with yourself?
Yeah, I remember.
No. And a lot of people, there was a lot of debate around that. We're like, no, what do you mean? Bah, 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 bah. So then I ended up saying like, you know what, let me do something with myself, because otherwise I might just continue to build pressure this way within myself. So I thought, okay, you know what, let me try this like entrepreneurial type route where um, I decided to become like a content creator for YouTube. And I would be creating videos and whatnot. And like at first it was frustrating. It went from frustration because it was just like, I don't know what it is to be in front of a camera a lot and like put in all this work into editing and everything. Then it became cool because it was just like, oh wow, like I'm actually starting to enjoy it. But then it went back into frustration where it's just like, okay, you're not seeing growth. But more importantly, is that I'm basically not enjoying what I'm doing.
Mm.
It became a point. It came to a point where it was very stressful uh, to just constantly be online and like be commenting or like be trying to engage with people and trying to basically push your content in front of other people and stuff like that, so that they could go ahead and view and subscribe and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I basically had a breaking point where I was just like, I can't do this. So I yeah, I mean, I hit the breaking point, um, and then I went back to some notes I had written down because earlier during the pandemic, I had this conversation with my girlfriend about how there's just not enough places for people to go and play soccer, because you always either have to pay to play,
Yeah.
or things of this nature, right? So we were always like, oh, it'd be cool if we started like a nonprofit of some sort. So I remember that whole conversation, but then I thought about my own mental health and the way I approached soccer. So this kind of all ties nicely with what I had told you about my childhood memory with my grandfather, about having patience and just like kind of just enjoying your time with the ball. And that, again, in retrospect, I see like, wow, that moment really taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But as a teenager and in my young adult years, I always viewed the game as a way for me to kind of express and escape from everything that's going on. So I wanted to bring that same theme into this organization, Soccer Therapy NYC, where we use exercise as a vehicle to encourage people to improve their lifestyle, not only physically, but also the mental health benefits it has. But then what we also want to do, again, is like have that, how do we communicate and how do we educate people in a way that normalizes, like saying like, yeah, if you're a man or if you're anybody and are going through something, like just talk about it, but talk about it in a way that helps you, because a lot of times people unleash their thoughts and feelings through anger.
Yeah.
And I think we've all fallen victim to that, whether it be verbally or even while playing sports.
Hmm.
I remember like when I was growing up, whenever I had a bad day or something like that, I'd end up getting very angry while playing soccer. And then you end up not playing. But now the last 2 years, I just play with a smile on my face. I play I basically play with the two things that kind of got me into the game. Seeing Ronaldinho play with a smile, and then remembering that time with my grandfather telling me to be patient and to just kind of like enjoy.
Hmm.
Um, and all of those different thoughts and all of those different principles I've applied to my personal life. Where, of course, I'm not perfect, but I can kind of hit pause
Yeah.
for a moment, assess, and then execute. And that's funny enough, also the way I approached the creation of the logo for Soccer Therapy NYC. So, like, you'll see the soccer ball, but then in the middle, there's the pause symbol, which is a gentle reminder to just take a second, take a deep breath,
Hmm.
and then continue on with your day.
Beautiful. So, some things that you said that I would like to just reiterate. Uh,
Yep.
Dealing with being alone
Mm,
is a very important step, and it's something that most of us struggle with without even realizing it.
mm,
And the moment you're able to come to that conclusion or
mm,
realization, I say realization, not conclusion, because it's not something that it's not a one time fix. You know, it's
right.
still an ongoing thing. So um, it's huge. It's huge
Mm,
when you come to that realization that it's a huge step going forward. That you can you realize that you're able to deal with being alone,
mm,
and even if you're in a relationship, even you're in a family or you have people around you,
mm,
there's still a form of being alone that we all find ourselves in. And for me, I think that was my because the language I used, I never even officially um, tagged it as being alone. But when you
mm,
were talking about it, that's when it dawned on me that yes, it was a step that I went through
mm,
before I started changing, before I started changing for the positive. And it was also coming to the realization that I dealt with being alone, and that's when I started seeking help and getting therapy and all that. But I had to deal with it, and I dealt with it. Everybody deals with it in different ways, but as far as you're dealing with it in a positive manner, that's the most important thing. And but it's just important that people realize that it's something that we all have to deal with, and there's nothing wrong with tackling it.
yep.
It's something that unfortunately our parents, people before our families and those before them, never majority of them were not given the language to deal
Mm,
with mental health. And all this stems from colonialism, slavery, and all that combination of all that, the systems that it created. So it became something that had to do with weakness.
right.
It's tagged as weakness, and that's why there's a stigma attached to it, especially
Mm,
for men. It becomes, like when you tell a little kid, a boy, don't cry like a girl. Why you crying? Like even when my daughter cries, like sometimes I still make mistake. Like, why you crying? Like even saying
mm,
something as simple, why are you crying? You have to cry. It's normal. Human beings have to. It's part of. It's a biological effort to wash, get germs out too.
yeah,
We
yeah.
miss that aspect of something as simple as that. It's even the statement, "Why are you crying?" It's not
Mm,
right. And
yeah.
that's why I'm lucky to have the person I have as a partner because she has to check me out on something as simple as that. Because the way I say, "Why are you crying?" is I can ask, "Was something wrong?" I can ask, "Why are you crying?" but in a different way. I don't have to come as forceful as I do sometimes. But it still shows that I still have the remnants of that issue in me without even realizing that but it's still in there. So that's why it's an ongoing process. But um, yeah, I have someone who, unfortunately, we are not really on talking terms right now. But before we cut off, well, I cut him off. Before I cut him off, he reached out to me. We both grew up in Nigeria. He's
Mm,
a little bit younger than I am. But one day he reached out to me, and he used to try to be a contrarian
mm,
and counter me on every point that I made. And then one day he just called me and said, "You know what? I agree with a whole lot of things you've been saying. Now I see the light." And he just called his dad one day and said, he asked his dad, "Why have you never said you love me? You never said you
mm,
love me. It's growing up, I've never seen you say you love any of us.
mm,
Why?" And he said his dad started crying because his dad said it never occurred to him that that was a language that he should have used on his children. That it's that it was this macho culture. You have to be
mm.
tough. I have to teach my boys to
Right,
be tough, and he didn't understand the damage that he was doing. And
right,
now his son starts challenging somebody who's saying, "Hey, I don't think we've been taught the right way. A lot of things that they claim is African, it's not. It's not.
right.
We need to challenge where that message came from." And he'll always come after me. And then one day he started putting two and two together and said, "No, this is wrong." So when
Right.
he asked his dad, and the dad actually sat down and thought about it, the dad started crying.
Wow.
And I was like, "Well, I'm glad that you had this conversation with your dad, and it's something that
Yeah.
you should keep having, because a whole lot of us try to have this conversation with our parents, and they're like, 'Why are you
Yeah.
attacking me?' I'm like, it's not an attack, but we need to have a conversation, because there's no way this stigma can be removed if we are not having this conversation. We can't
Right.
come to an honest conversation, then there's no way about it. Because if we can't talk about this, how are we even going to talk about those who went through sexual assault, emotional
Yeah.
abuse? There's a whole lot of other categories that's out
Yeah.
there, and it just builds up and builds up. So it's great that that's why on this podcast, mental health is a big thing,
Mhm.
and I always talk about it. I'm still in therapy. I stopped for some time because I kind of did that thing of, hey, I'm good now. Everybody's praising me. Everybody's saying, "Wow, you're different. What happened, man?" I said, "Hey, I went to therapy." They're like, "Wow, it worked?" I said, "Yeah." And then I'm like, "Well, everybody's saying I'm good. I don't need to. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
I need to go anymore." And then I started noticing pre-pandemic that there were certain habits, there were certain
Yeah.
little traits, little by little, it started popping out. And you notice it, no, I put it in check. But at night, you're by yourself, you're like, "That was that me? Was that what I really wanted to say? Did it come out right?" This is how I used to sound when I was depressed. This is how I used to sound when I'm like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't wait too long. I should get back in therapy. And
Right.
that's why I took that step of going back in therapy. And um, I still have, while I'm officially in therapy, meeting with a therapist, I still have other things that are therapeutic for me, like playing soccer, getting involved in volunteering. Well, I can't do that. I used to be involved in community garden.
Mhm.
Um, but spending time with my daughter, every time my daughter is therapeutic, because I see
Yeah.
so much stuff a 2-year-old can teach me, and I'm like,
Of
fine.
course.
It's amazing what they know. But
Yeah.
it's there's so many things that can be used now to break the cycle, because that's all we're about now, is to break the cycle. And as you said earlier at the beginning of the episode, normalizing the conversation. If we don't do all this, there's no, it's all about normalizing the conversation, and
Mhm.
that's the main goal. And I'm not perfect. Nobody will be perfect, but I'm
Exactly.
okay with not being perfect. No, it doesn't mean I'm not striving to be better, but I'm okay with not being perfect.
Yeah.
And before I would have been judging myself, beating myself down. I'm terrible. No, no, no. So I can go play soccer. I know I'm not the best guy. I'm not in the top 10. And if
Yeah.
you pass the ball to me 10 times, I might have a bad control. I might not do, I
Mhm.
mean, my brain, this is what I want to do, and it might not come out right. But I'm not
Yeah.
going to kill myself. I'm not going to beat myself, and I'll
Yeah.
laugh.
No.
If I do the wrong thing, I just laugh about it. If
Exactly.
I mistakenly tackle someone in the wrong manner,
I immediately apologize.
I'm the first to stretch out
Yeah.
and, "Hey man, you okay?" I check on you. If I had a chance to go score and someone slipped and fell who was coming, from the defending team, I don't. It's not the goal. Is not important, man. I'll go check on you.
Yeah,
You know, and
of course.
but it's about having fun. Because if I'm not, if you're not having fun, and I'm not. Why should I be the only person having fun here? Everybody should have
Right.
fun. We need that good environment going on,
Yeah.
and so all these things is part of the change. But if I had not
Exactly.
been able to deal with being alone, I wouldn't be in this position where I am today, where
Yeah.
I am now able to talk about it publicly because there are
Hmm.
many people who look at me and say, "Wow, you don't say it." A friend came
Hmm.
to an episode I recorded on somebody else on another person's podcast, and he listened to what I said, and he was like, "I wouldn't have said all that publicly
Mm.
because I talked about mental health and all that." He said,
Right.
"No, I wouldn't have said that." He's also of Nigerian descent. He said, I wouldn't have said that." No, because it's all about presenting that perfect picture, that perfect image.
Right.
And I'm like, but we have faults. And
Yeah. At the end
how,
of the
how
day,
do
we're
we
human.
fix it? We can't fix
Yeah.
it if we don't admit it. So there's something that needs to be fixed. But if we don't normalize the conversation, how do we fix it? We just
Exactly.
gonna keep pretending that everything is perfect, and then disaster happens. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, I'm surprised." Like, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, but we knew there was a problem, right?
Right.
But
Exactly. We just never addressed it.
yeah, so we don't have to wait until disaster happens. So that's why I really love what you're doing. As soon as I heard about what you were doing, I was like, yeah, there's no way I'll miss out on getting you on the podcast. And what's our good friend's name again? I don't know why just his name disappeared from my head. Um, our good friend who introduced you to me.
Oh,
Uh,
Benny.
Benny, yeah. I was,
Yes.
his picture just popped up in my head. I was thinking of someone else from
Yeah. Yeah.
someone from his country of origin. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Benny, and I'm still waiting for Benny to come on the podcast. By the way, so
Yeah.
I'm calling him out. Yeah, so
I'll send them an email too.
yeah. So when Benny told me about you, I was like, "Oh, most definitely. You have to be a guest here. We need
Appreciate it.
more people like you, and we encourage you and we appreciate the work you're doing. You know,
Appreciate it. Yeah.
so I know the pandemic has kind of slowed down your work, but if anyone wants to like if someone is interested in soccer therapy, how do they get started or how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a website. It's soccertherapynyc.org. There you can visit our site, and we really map out what our mission is, who we are, why we're doing what we're doing. The number one way to support us is through donations, because any donations are used specifically to treat and sponsor people who can't afford mental health. So on average, mental health therapy can cost anywhere between $80 a session to $200 a session. And with that knowledge, we've built a network of therapists based here in New York City, in the New Jersey area, as well as in Los Angeles, who are seeing patients who that we're sponsoring. So any donations and anything that's purchased on the website, specifically, we have our official soccer jerseys that were in partnership with Adidas. So if you're a big Adidas three stripe fan, then this is probably the best jersey for you. But 100% of the proceeds go towards this crucial mission, which is to sponsor people who can't afford it, who are unemployed, but they need that mental support from a therapist. So you can visit us on our website. You can also follow us on Instagram at Soccer Therapy NYC. So there we put a lot of content that is resourceful, and that's really our main focus there, so that we can educate people on, like, for example, like how to manage anxiety, how to cope with the stigmas that exist within our communities, and things of that nature. So there's an abundance of content that we'll continue to develop, especially this year, as it'll be our full calendar year in operations. So we'll definitely be publishing a lot more content there, as well as building out different products like email marketing, so that we can, get these 30-minute conversations that we have with mental health professionals and advocates to directly into your inbox. So we basically break it down in a way that's easy for you to learn and whatnot. But yeah, those are really like the main two ways. Follow us on Instagram and visit our website.
All righty. And are there any other are there any organizations that you're in partnership with?
So there's no official partnerships besides the therapist that we're working with, the partnership with Adidas, but we are in talks with, for example, like Soccer Roof out in Brooklyn
Yeah,
to
that's where we
begin.
used to play our league. Yeah.
Yeah, to begin hosting events once people are much more comfortable in being together. But we definitely want to have our first event there, to really get people into a safe zone so we could all play soccer,
Hmm.
enjoy each other, but then also have a guest therapist to kind of be there to address any immediate questions and to kind of just get everybody into like a zen space. So I would say Soccer Roof is probably number one right now.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah,
And yeah, they're good people there. So
they
people
are.
are
Yes.
people I can vouch for. All righty. So yeah, I can't thank you enough. But before I officially wrap this episode,
Yep.
there's one question I did not dive into, and it's also plays into mental health,
For sure.
depending on how people want to use it. But and in general, it's just a fun question. So, being that you have Colombian heritage,
Mhm.
we've mentioned some Colombian footballers. They all have one thing in common. They all can groove. They got the dance steps in line.
Yep.
So you gotta tell me, when it comes to music, where does your heart belong to?
Oh man, at the end of the day, that's a tough one. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I love. So I'm from Cali, the capital of the
Yeah.
world for South. Um, I love listening to it. I love dancing to it and everything. But weirdly enough, for some reason, house music that kind of gets you moving in the same way and that uses the same instruments
Mm,
gets me
it's
going.
fascinating.
Yeah. So like for some examples could be like Truce and Ceballos, um, Oscar G from Miami. Uh, Virgil actually also has some good go-to DJ sets, but that music that kind of just gets you going like side to side,
Mm-hmm.
that's my go-to music when it comes to like a long drive or if I'm like I need to focus on some work.
Yeah.
That's what I go to. Yeah.
All right. That's good taste right there. Yeah, I knew you wouldn't fail on that.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All righty. So yeah, it's been fun having you here. You've already plugged yourself in a way. So just the final thing to leave the audience with. What you like to, could give the audience a quote, could be a line from a book you've read or from one of your travels, something someone gave you a word of advice, or yeah, just something you like to wrap up the episode by leaving the audience with.
Yeah. One quote that I low-key live by, and I heard it back in 2015 during one of my I read it I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said this, but it was whatever you are, be a good one.
Mm,
And that quote really, really resonated with me because it's not specific to anything, but it ties in nicely with the way I tend to live my own life. And also, at the end of the day, what my organization's mission is, which is, for example, uh, we're a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we're human. And then, but just be a good human, just be a
yeah.
good person, whether it be through love, through work, through your profession, whatever the case is, just be a good one.
All righty. That's can't go wrong with that, man. Can't go
Yeah.
wrong with that because you're a good one. You normalize the conversation, most
Yeah.
definitely. So I had to throw that in there. All right. So can't thank you enough. Appreciate you for coming on the podcast, Kevin. And yeah, I look forward to having more collabo with you down the line. And yeah, So, shout out to everyone listening. Don't forget to join us for more episodes. And yeah, keep the love coming in. And as Kevin said, whatever you are, be a good one. And thank you for the privilege of your company.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.